Alright. Hey guys. I'm a little late on this one, on these ones specifically, and I'm doing these in a bit of a weird order. So I'm going to be doing these in the order that I intend to release them. Namely, we're going to be talking about Rondo today, Soten next week, and then the week after that, we will do Soten. Or, sorry, no, Soten's next week. Aria of Sorrow is the week after that. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, why do it this way, Blue Wolf? Timeline. The timeline. Now, what's funny is that I don't really have a spoiler section for this one. Not really. Because, I mean, come on, if you can't figure out what the plot is of a Castlevania game, pre-Soten, well, let me rephrase that, a pre-Soten Castlevania game, then I got nothing. The lore runner has said that that Soten was actually the first time they ever really did anything story-wise. I would argue they were dabbling in it at this point, but very, very slightly. They wanted to expand upon the story a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, Soten is where the story focus started. Let's not even remotely beat around the bush on that one. Soten, for all intents and purposes, was the start of Castlevania's storytelling. But what's funny is that I think they were planting the seeds here in Rondo, so that way they could sprout and they could actually expand upon it in the next one. You know, so that way, we would kind of get a feel for Soten being a sequel to Rondo, a direct sequel. Right? Because the Castlevanias have always been, for the most part, what the lore runner calls indirect sequels. In other words, it's effectively just another story that happened. This one, no matter how you slice it, is a direct sequel to this game, Rondo of Blood. Because, yeah. Now, some people are wondering, wait, okay, hang on, Blue Wolf, you gotta specify which version are we talking about here? Because there's a SNES, there's the PC CD, PC Engine CD version, and then there's the PSP remake. For the record, I am talking about Rondo of Blood, because remember, all three of those have different names. The SNES one is Dracula X. The PC Engine CD one is this one, Rondo of Blood, and the remake is on the PSP is the Dracula X Chronicles. So, duh. So when I say Rondo of Blood, I am specifically referring to the actual Rondo of Blood, not the butchered SNES port that turns Maria into Annette's sister, which all I'm going to say is if you accept that version of canon, please tell me you ship Maria with Alucard. For the love of God, please tell me you ship Maria with Alucard. I'm going to have enough to rant about out with the frickin' Alright, like, I have enough to rant about with the Trail series, and it's gross incest. It's just overtones, but regardless. And if you're squicked out by that, okay, look. Look. Maria grows up. It's 4 years. Like, I want to say she's probably like, and I don't even, I don't think even the wiki kind of specifies her age in Soten. Actually, did the wiki do that? Oh, dang it, now I forget. Okay, looking it up. Give me a second. Yes, her. Let's go. Oh, they do specify. Ah, come on. Hey, she's 17 here. She's 17 in Soten. 18 in the audio drama. So, There you go. Anyways, sorry. Regardless, she's apparently 12 here, so there you go. But we'll get to Maria later. So, I mean, I guess the spoiler section would be the maidens, but like rescuing the maidens and yada yada yada. But and Shaft, excuse me, Shaft and all that. But even he's not really a spoiler when you think about it, because all the plot does with him is he's a boss you fight later. Now, gameplay wise, I spoiled it. I basically am hands off on warning you about spoilers, mostly because the idea is you just played the game and now you want to know my thoughts. But yeah, I spoil gameplay stuff, but I also try not to spoil any plot stuff, is especially if it's related to gameplay. So I'm usually very vague about specific plot points, unless those plot points I consider to not be very major spoilers. Like Sarah, for example, there's a fight against Sarah, Instructor Sarah in Trails of Cold Steel 1 that I don't really consider a spoiler. A, because it's pretty damn close to the beginning of the game, within like the second chapter, I want to say, within chapter 2, I want to say, and and it's not a goddamn spoiler of what happens, you know. Uh, One of the few times they break that series breaks the curse of won the battle, lost the cutscene, because you lose the battle and the cutscene, because as you frickin' should. Yeah. Anyways, regardless of all of that, though, Rondo is kind of interesting because Rondo is worse than I thought. No, seriously, it's worse than I thought. And I'm not even gonna beat around the bush on this. This game scored a very barely net positive score for me. Why? Because the gameplay is so all fucking over the place, to the point where the gameplay literally became neutral. That's what a score of 0 on the game, a score on 0 of any on either axis is on this one. I would show you, but again, I've already cleared it long since. But I do know the score. It was +4, +4 to story and 0 to gameplay. And to be blunt, that's only really because of a couple of factors that I'll quickly consult my notes for. Let's see. The intro, with its visual storytelling, a point for Richter, some story pluses for meeting Maria, and for Maria herself and Richter himself. Though I might be the only person who will give that. There's what else? Simultaneously gave a plus and a negative for Maria's ending, and a plus for her Richter's ending. And then there was some negatives again, not only for Maria's thing, not only for Maria's thing, but yeah. The lack of so let's get into some of my complaints about the gameplay before we continue. Let's start with the irritations of just playing the game, the difficulties specifically. Now, old school Castlevania is notorious for being hard, but all Castlevania games, that 2D Castlevania games that are not Metroidvanias, suffer from one very simple problem that has always pissed me off, admittedly. Not like to the point where it's like, "Rawr, fuck this game," but still pissed me off to the point of, why the hell? And that was And that was the fact that apparently Summon Belmont is the best, it is the most powerful Belmont. No, seriously, think about this for a second. Now, obviously, his 8-bit incarnation is not what we're talking about. We're talking about his 16-bit incarnation. The ability to whip in multiple directions, having more precise movement, air movement. In other words, having control of his jumps, and it's not the commit to your jump thing, where you lose all control until you complete the jump. But he's, there was a lot of control in Castlevania 4, which is the game I'm referring to, and Rondo Blood just did not give you good control. It's actually one of the things that made the Dracula X version, the SNES port, suck ass. God, I hate that. I hate that game because it has a lot of the same issues. Not great level design. Well, I mean, granted, the level design's actually pretty good in Rondo for the most part, but there are some levels that are good and some levels that are just bullshit. So I just kind of gave that a wash. Which I'm pretty sure. Let me triple check my notes here. Yeah, it was a very specific. There were actually just very specific rooms that I gave negatives for. So the level design overall was a wash, but there were specific rooms that were just like, yeah, no, go to hell. There's one where there's a bunch of fleamen jumping down, and there's spikes. There's spike pits. It's along your path. Now you can choose different paths, but the thing is that unless you have a walkthrough, you're not going to know which path you need to take in order to go to which level to rescue the maidens. Because spoilers, you're not able to rescue all of the maidens, and you end up getting a bad ending. Bad ending, which I put in quotes because it really just changes one boss fight, and that's your sad ending. Dracula X, at the very least, actually kind of did this better, because in the ending it was actually dependent on whether or not you saved Maria, whether or not you saved Annette, and whether or not you did you save Annette? Did you save Maria? Did you save Annette? Did you save neither of them? Did you save both of them? Did you save one or the other? And that's dependent on the ending you get, which was really just one image at the end, admittedly. But at the same time, okay, again, Castlevania wasn't really big on story back then, so okay, fine. The voice act, now I know that the English dub had very little to work with the mouth movements and stuff, although they really don't care about lip syncing, so why not just, write a good script and say, fuck the lip syncing, right? But, Also, the voice acting is very stilted in specifically this version of Rondo. I remember the voice acting being much better in the Dracula X Chronicles, because in the remake specifically, because man, did it feel like the dub here was an afterthought. I've heard better performances from Michelle Ruff, and I don't even have to go into the Bleach example. I can name other examples of games from around that time where she did better, right? Persona 3 coming to mind immediately when I say that, where she played Yukari Takeba. And yes, I pronounce it that way because that's what every dub of, every time she has shown up in future Persona works, the English dub pronounces it Yukari Takeba. So there you go. Now they've always pronounced it Takeba. That's why Takeba does not change, right? Okay. So here we go. So yeah, a lot of the bosses are actually pretty fun. Though they suffer from a similar problem that the rest of the game suffers from: knockback and the lack of iframes. Also, the amount of damage you take. Now, I know that's meant to be the challenge factor, but I have never liked games where the challenge has been you take a fuck ton of damage because fuck you. Hi Dark Souls, how you doing? And you knew I was going there. And I'm not trying to say Castlevania was Dark Souls before Dark Souls was a thing. No, Dark Souls is just the new Castlevania. Ha! The only difference is in my opinion, Castlevania has some decent design to it, and Dark Souls and uh, Dark Soul esque games in general are just there to, well, annihilate the shit out of you. Like, to beat the shit out of you. And it really kind of grates on me after a while, if I'm honest. God, this lighting is weird, but I don't really have a good solution for it. Not until they fix that stupid circuit issue. Anyway, sorry, unrelated. So yeah, you notice I'm not even really fully like I'm looking down, but that's to think. My notes are actually over here. Here, so sorry about that. That's why I reach over to grab my notes because having them in my lap is one. I guess I could have them in my lap, but I don't really need them because yeah. I will go ahead and I'll be honest with you. Okay, I want to go ahead and be honest with you. I don't think Rondo of Blood is that bad, but I also don't think it's that good either. It's kind of just there. And I will say this now. Let's get into the one thing that kept this from being a negative game, gameplay wise. Maria Renard. Now, forgive me for borrowing the joke from Some Call Me Johnny, but plain as a little girl in a pink dress. As instead of the manliness that is Richter. Fuck you, Maria's awesome. Now, okay, I'm sorry. I should have pointed that way or whatever, so I apologize. I pointed straight ahead, but my hand was off screen, obviously. But the reason now, okay, wow, that's the second time during these videos I've done this. I just edited my Valkyria Chronicles video from my perspective. Anyways, there's a reason why in the video description of I believe it was the first. No, it was the second one. It was the second VOD where I point blank said in the video description of the VOD, if you're going to play this game, embrace playing as Maria. Now you're probably thinking, well, why, Blue Wolf? One, she has better control over her jump, and she has a double jump. Actually, the double jump is actually why she has more control. Well, point two, her attacks are faster. Point three, her animal buddies are awesome. My personal favorites in terms of her use and item crash, both, are the bird and the dragon. It's awesome. The turtle's item crash is alright. Right? The book one is what? Her book is whatever. The egg, I don't remember what the hell that one's supposed to do. The cat. You can use cats, which is... Yes, apparently cat damage is a thing. Okay. Okay, Soten. Thanks for introducing that. Anyways, I don't know if there's actual cat damage from a technical perspective in this one. Would not surprise me in the slightest, though. But then there's, of course... So, yeah, no, playing as Maria is awesome. Which is, if you're wondering how to get Maria because you're struggling, there's a level with a behemoth chasing you. Have the behemoth chase you until it dies. Then you go. Do not let go of the key. Get the key from one of the candles from when you are being chased by the behemoth. Go past the behemoth. Get over to the other side. There. Go down the stairs. Go through the thing. You will see a door that's locked. uh, use the item, use the key, which is the same as using, a holy water or an axe or a cross. Using a sub weapon. You use your key sub weapon on the door. The door opens. Shaft is doing this ritual thing where Maria's floating in the air. We chase away Shaft by whipping at him. Maria is now playable. I gave that two negatives because again, it because again, you can be screwed out of it. The behemoth could knock you into a pit, which puts you on a completely different path. You could die at the wrong spot, which means you lose access to the key. There's way too many ways. It's just too easy to fuck it up to the point where it's screwballed. There is decent checkpointing here, but it wasn't enough to really warrant a plus from me because I can't stand how much when you're trying to do specific things, the checkpoints screw you over. Yeah. Rescuing the other maidens got similar bull crap to it because there's specific things you have to whip. For the one and lady with the bridge with the frogs, you actually have to whip specific statues. One that's right near the beginning of the path, and then one at the end. Then you have to backtrack, go down, then you can rescue her. And then there's another one that I actually don't remember where the hell she was. It's not, but again, unless you have a walkthrough or have done it before, like multiple times, I'll need a walkthrough almost every time because I don't intend to replay Rondo that much. But the thing is that again, it's all the stiffness of the controls. Now, again, I don't care about the spoilers because mostly what this is just Dracula being Drac, Drac being Drac, and still being in his phase of evil. Now, the lore runner posits that he doesn't want to do this anymore. Rondo kind of spits in the face of that a little bit. Now, granted, you could say, well, he's being theatrical, Blue Wolf. Fair. Very fair. Because, I mean, come on, the over-the-top nature. Like, especially the way Patrick Sates performs as Dracula. Especially in Soten, right? Right? Because, the opening speech, Now, some people have complained about they don't have the "What is a man?" in its full glory. I actually kind of like both speeches, if I'm honest. I like because honestly, the "What is a man?" only works if the voice actor for Dracula is going over the top, like the original Soten's voice actor did, in my opinion, right? What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets, but enough talk. How about you? But for somebody but since they casted Patrick Sates, it makes much more sense for it to be much more subdued. Humanity. And with more anger in his tone. Oh, right? Humanity. A cesspit of hatred and lies. Fight for them then, and die for their sins. Right? Now, if it is just him playing a role, fair enough. But to be honest with you, a lot of this is. Yeah. A lot of this is interesting stuff, and I actually enjoy every minute of it. Rondo of Blood is a very interesting game, and I know I haven't really said much, but there's not much for me to say outside of what I said on the stream. It works for what it is. It's a Castlevania game. Excuse me. It's a Castlevania game. It's hard, but it's also rewarding. And the true Dracula form can go to hell. Because I hate that form. Mostly because the control is just so wonky. I curb stomped True Dracula as Maria and was struggling with him on as Richter. Think about that for a second. Yeah. Anyways, that's Rondo of Blood. A very balls busting game that I do recommend at least one playthrough of, but it's old school Castlevania, so be ready for some jank, some irritation, and some not great stuff. Also, the Requiem HD collection, which is the version I used for this. Yeah, I just the lack of options is awful. There is some options for like changing your controls and whatnot, but it's literally just map your Rondo controls and change the border. Because they keep it in the original aspect ratio. That's it. No screens. Well, there's some screen size options, but they suck, admittedly. And yeah, blech. To the black, awful, not unacceptable lack of options. And this is coming from me. When you can only set like 5 things, that's awful. But regardless, that's it for me. For Rondo of Blood. Told you that this wasn't going to be very long. I haven't even hit the half an hour mark. And that's really just because I was constantly and that's just because it actually took me a bit to explain different aspects of this. And yeah, that's all I got to say. Some of the boss fights were good. I like the Shaft Gauntlet. I love the first form of Dracula, even though it's the same as he's ever been. Teleport, fireballs, those molten fireballs that are slower. Or it's good stuff. Although I gotta say, the final battle against Dracula is so much better in Soten because I absolutely love how Soten controls. But we'll talk about that more next time in a video that will not be better than the Lore Runners video on Soten. See you there, guys. Blue Wolf Alex the Lore Walkers signing out. Have a good one.